Hello everyone and welcome back to the Dungeon Learner's Guide. Today we've got another of our daily Pride Month decks. This is deck number 7, so we've been doing this for an entire week, and it is titled Poets of the Sun. And in case you've missed some of our previous deck techs, what we're doing is building a commander deck using 2 non-partner commanders, working with a budget of $100 or less, and using this as a way to celebrate the diversity of the LGBTQ+ community for all of June through the medium of Magic the Gathering. So today, our 2 partner commanders are going to be 2 actual partners in the lore of Magic the Gathering, similar to Chandra and Nissa yesterday. But these 2 are Huatli and Saheeli. So Huatli, in this case we're using her card of Poet of Unity, which is 2 and a green for a 2/3 human warrior bard. When she enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle, and then you can pay 3 and a hybrid red-white, and exile Huatli and return her to the battlefield transformed under her owner's control, but only as a sorcery, and when she transforms, she turns into Roar of the Fifth People, which is a saga, and it has at level 1, create 2 3/3 green dinosaur creature tokens. Level 2, Roar of the Fifth People gains creatures you control have tap, add red, green, or white. Level 3, search your library for a dinosaur card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. And level 4, dinosaurs you control gain double strike and trample until the end of turn. So Huatli really wants us to be a dinosaur deck, so let's take a look at her girlfriend Saheeli and see a little bit about what she wants our deck to look like. Because Saheeli, the Sun's Brilliance, is a blue and a red for a 2/2 legendary creature human artificer, and you can pay a blue and a red and tap her to create a token that's a copy of another target creature or artifact you control, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. It gains haste, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So Saheeli is a little bit more open. She really just wants us to have creatures or artifacts because we can create token copies of them. And so by putting these 2 together, we actually wind up with a 4-color deck, essentially every color except for black, and that allows us to play into a certain major theme for this deck, which is going to be dinosaurs. I figure since Huatli really wants us to care about dinosaurs, and Saheeli just wants us to have creatures, we may as well take advantage of that and play as many dinosaurs as possible, and since we're a 4-color deck, we actually get to play with some dinosaurs that are typically outside the normal dinosaur colors in blue. And so a good example of a dinosaur that we really want to see in this deck is Earthshaker Dreadmaw, which is 4 green for a 6/6 dinosaur. It's got trample. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card for each other dinosaur you control. Being able to have that level of card draw that's kind of focused on our dinosaurs, but also just kind of focused on us going wide in a kind of go tall sort of deck. Dinosaurs are a little bit weird because they do want to both go wide and make massive creatures. Earthshaker kind of fits exactly what we want it to be doing. Moving on to our second theme of the deck. This one is going to be ramp, but not the kind of ramp that you would expect. So typically, since we're a green deck, you would expect that our ramp is going to put lands into play, or maybe we use mana rocks because we're a 4-color deck. But in reality, because a lot of our cards that we want to ramp into are going to be dinosaurs, we have cards like Kinjali's Caller, which is 1 white for a 0/3 human cleric. Dinosaur spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Now, this isn't the only effect like this in the deck. We have a lot of Dinosaur Matters themes, but ramp is really where we want to take that and push it to the next level. And it is unfortunate that the caller is a human, not a dinosaur, but it's still a way for us to get our big bombs into play much quicker. Finally, moving on to our third theme of the deck. In this case, we have creating dinosaur tokens. So Scalestorm Summoner is a good example of this. It is 2 and a red for a 3/3 human warlock. Whenever it attacks, create a 3/1 red dinosaur creature token if you control a creature with power 4 or greater. So this is going to be incredibly useful because it not only creates a dinosaur, but it specifically creates a dinosaur if we control a creature power 4 or greater. And most of the time, since we're a dinosaur deck, that's going to be very simple. Being able to get a 4 power creature, attack with the summoner, make a token, and so that's kind of the go wide strategy. We want to make a ton of dinosaur tokens because they're still going to trigger all of our effects, but they're much cheaper and much more efficient to get into play than some of our 6 and 7 plus drops. But those are our themes for today, and the next thing I want to do is take a look at some key cards, and these are cards that really synergize with what we're trying to do, and in some cases can be win conditions or value engines all on their own. So the very first key card I want to talk about is going to be Dinosaurs on a Spaceship. And Dinosaurs on a Spaceship is 4 red, white for a 7/7 dinosaur with vigilance and trample. Other dinosaurs you control get +1/+1 and have vigilance and trample, but it also has suspend for 4, and we can spend that for 3 red, white, and whenever a time counter is removed from Dinosaurs on a Spaceship while it's exiled, create a 2/2 red and white dinosaur creature token with flying and haste. So this is a card that is incredibly efficient at what it does, being able to give our entire board +1/+1 vigilance and trample for only 6 mana as a 7/7 body is very good. But we can also, instead of spending 6 mana to cast it, we can spend 5, suspend it, and then make a 2/2 dinosaur every single turn, which, once the Dinosaurs on a Spaceship comes down, is now going to make a 2/2 flying, haste, vigilance, trample that gets +1/+1. And that's a great way to make sure that we have attackers, blockers, can deal damage, have our dinosaur synergies. It really just kind of does everything we want it to do. And it's a super unique card that does a lot of dinosaur synergies while also being relatively undercosted for what it provides. That, though, is only keycard number 1. So, moving on to keycard number 2, we have Cresting Mosasaurus. And this is where we get the benefit of having blue in a dinosaur deck when we normally would not. This is 6 blue for a 4/8 dinosaur, and it has Emerge for 6 and a blue, so we can cast this spell by sacrificing a creature and paying the Emerge cost reduced by that creature's mana value, and when it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, return each non-dinosaur creature to its owner's hand. This is a phenomenal one-sided board wipe, and it's a one-sided board wipe in a deck that really has just giant creatures that can close out the game very quickly. So being able to bounce all of our opponent's creatures means that we can now attack pretty much unimpeded, do a ton of damage, and then probably win the game immediately, or if not immediately, before our opponents are able to redeploy their threats and stop us from kind of continuing our game plan. Moving on to our final key card, this one is Temple Altasaur. And Temple Altasaur is 4 and a white for a 3/4 dinosaur. If a source would deal damage to another dinosaur you control, prevent all but one of that damage. So if we attack into our opponent's 20 power creature, then our dinosaur will still only take 1 damage from that creature. This is incredibly useful when it comes to damage-based board wipes like Blasphemous Act doing 13 damage to each creature. It's now only doing 1 to all of our creatures, meaning we probably survive it. Obviously the Altasaur does not count itself, so it will still take the full damage, but it'll at least leave the rest of our board intact. So those are all of our key cards for today, and moving on to the next piece of our deck tech, I'm going to talk a little bit about some cool interactions. These are cards that work really well with each other, and in some cases are just fun cards that I want to highlight because I think that they deserve a little bit of a spotlight. So our first pair of cards to talk about is going to be Sunfrill Imitator and Gishath Sun's Avatar. So Sunfrill Imitator is 2 and a green for a 3/3. Whenever it attacks, you may have it become a copy of another target dinosaur you control, except its name is Sunfrill Imitator and it has this ability. So this essentially gets around the legend rule, which is incredibly important when we pair it with Gishath Sun's Avatar, which is 5 red, green, white for a 7/6 legendary creature, Dinosaur Avatar, has Vigilance, Trample, Haste, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, reveal that many cards from the top of your library, put any number of dinosaur creature cards from among them onto the battlefield, and the rest on the bottom in a random order. If we can attack someone with Gishath and they don't block it at all, so we do the full 7 damage, we get to reveal the top 7 cards of our library and put all dinosaurs from among those 7 cards just straight into play. That is immensely powerful and a reason why Gishath is one of the premier dinosaur commanders. And so by having Sunfrill Imitator become a copy of Gishath, that means that we're not triggering the legend rule because it doesn't actually take Gishath's name and therefore won't die to the legend rule. We can hit someone for a maximum of 14 damage with no other effects, look at the top 14 cards of our library, and put all dinosaurs from among them into play. That is game-changingly powerful. It's definitely going to be a way to win the game a lot quicker than our opponents expect. And it's a great way to really push out a lot of very expensive creatures for relatively cheap. It's not obviously super cheap because we have to spend 8 mana on Gishath and 3 for the Sunfrill Imitator, but we could do this the turn that Gishath comes into play, which means we'd only need 8 mana to do it. And so I think because of that, this qualifies as a pretty cool interaction and also very powerful for our deck. Moving on to our second cool interaction, this one is between Regal Behemoth and Zakama Primal Calamity. So Regal Behemoth, 4 green for a 5/5 dinosaur. It's got Trample. When it enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch, and whenever you tap a land for mana while you are the Monarch, add an additional mana of any color. So essentially doubling up all of our mana production, which goes perfect with Zakama Primal Calamity, which is 6 red, green, white for a 9/9 legendary creature Elder Dinosaur, has Vigilance, Reach, Trample, and when it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, untap all lands you control. So if we have 9 lands, they tap for 18 mana, we use 9 of it to cast Zakama, we untap all our lands, we can tap them again, we now have access to 27 mana. And what can we do with all of that mana, you may be asking? Well, luckily, Zakama has some activated abilities. We can pay 2 in a red, and Zakama deals 3 damage to target creature, 2 in a green, we can destroy an artifact or enchantment, and 2 in a white, we can gain 3 life. So if we are able to activate the exact number of mana that I said earlier, so 27 mana, that allows us to activate Zakama 9 times. And that is incredibly powerful because we can just bolt down our opponent's boards, we can gain a ton of life, we can wipe out artifacts, enchantments, and creatures, and then next turn, we can just do it all over again. So Zakama is a great way to spend any extra mana, and Regal Behemoth is a great way to make that extra mana. So those are all of our cool interactions for this week, and the final piece of our deck tech is to take a look at the price of the deck. And today, our deck price came in at $89.35, with the most expensive card in the deck being Huatli Primal Conqueror at a massive $13.81. Huatli, though, definitely worth the price tag, is 5 red for a 7/7 legendary creature Elder Dinosaur. It has Trample, and when it enters the battlefield, each player exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card. You may cast any number of spells from among the non-land cards exiled this way without paying their mana costs. Then, of course, it also can transform for 9 and a Phyrexian green, and you can only transform it as a sorcery, but when you do transform it, it turns into Huatli Primal Sickness, which is an 11/11 Phyrexian Elder Dinosaur with Trample, Indestructible, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, they get that many poison counters. So, in other words, if you hit someone with Huatli Primal Sickness, it will take 11 poison counters, and that player will lose the game. Now, there are some ways to get around this, obviously, but an 11/11 Trample Indestructible means you need more than a 1/1 creature to block it. However, that's not actually why this card is so expensive. It's actually so expensive because of the front side. Being able to cast a spell for free from every single player when it enters the battlefield is incredibly powerful, because on its worst case, you probably maybe get, we'll say, 4 mana rocks and just ramp 4 mana, but that's still pretty good. While on the best case scenario, you could wind up getting game-winning spells, massive instants, sorceries, planeswalkers, anything that could help your opponents win the game is now coming into play under your control. So I do think Huatli is worth the price in the deck, and it's still pretty good even if you do transform it and start swinging with it. So that, though, brings us to the end of our deck tech for today. And so I want to say a big shout out to all of our patrons and channel members for supporting the channel so far. And of course, a thank you to everyone who has watched all of these deck techs and has supported these Pride Month decks. It really does mean a lot to me. So thank you all so much. And if you are interested in seeing more of these, I will be doing one every single day for the month of June. So please make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out. But with all that being said, thank you once again, and I hope everyone has a wonderful Pride Month, and I will see you all on the other side of the Dungeon Learner's Guide.